There's a lot of confusion these days in the United States. Talk about buying Canada, taking over Greenland or the Panama Canal. And even talk about some states wanting to secede from the USA. These are not new concepts. Texas has floated the idea of leaving the United States for years. But imagine if it actually happened. Say, Minnesota decided to break away and shift its border 10 miles south of Albert Lea, all because folks realized they prefer affordable healthcare and Tim Hortons over fireworks and firearms. Would the people really go along with it? We ran a survey asking 1,000 people in every state whether they'd want their state to leave the United States and join another country. If they answered yes, we asked which country they'd choose: Canada, Mexico, Greenland, Japan, or an EU nation. It took a few months to gather enough responses, and a few states didn't reach the 1,000 participants. As a result, Alaska, Connecticut, Louisiana, and West Virginia were excluded from the final data. This video ranks the states based on how many people out of 1,000 voted to leave the US. Let's see what we found. Starting at number 10, Hawaii. It has always had a unique and sometimes uneasy relationship with being part of the United States. Before becoming the 50th state in 1959, it was an independent kingdom with its own government and a rich cultural heritage. That identity still runs deep among many native Hawaiians and residents. Federal policies coming out of Washington often clash with the values that define life in Hawaii, values like environmental protection, cultural preservation, and a deep-rooted sense of community and diversity. Whether it's debates over land use, indigenous rights, immigration, or climate change, many feel that Hawaii's priorities are often overlooked or misunderstood by mainland politics. When Donald Trump pushed the birther conspiracy about Barack Obama, who was born in Honolulu, it was seen by many as yet another reminder that Hawaii's voice is frequently dismissed on the national stage. Now imagine Canada respectful, environmentally aware, multicultural, and not obsessed with border walls. It's easy to see why some Hawaiians might look north and think, that sounds more our speed. Hawaii has long had conversations about independence or shifting alliances almost since the day after it became a state. In our survey, 564 out of 1,000 people in Hawaii said they'd support leaving the US, and 60% people said they'd want to join Canada. Number 9, we have Vermont. If there's any state that already feels like it belongs in Canada, it's Vermont. With its strong emphasis on sustainability, progressive values, and a rural lifestyle built on tight-knit communities, Vermont often seems more culturally in sync with our northern neighbor than with much of the US. It's a place where hiking trails, maple syrup, and small-town politeness aren't just traditions, they're part of the state's DNA. During the Trump years, the political divide between Vermont and the federal government became especially clear. While Washington was rolling back climate protections and healthcare policies, Vermont was going the other direction, pushing for single-payer healthcare, banning single-use plastics, and investing heavily in renewable energy. The contrast highlighted just how far apart Vermont and DC can be ideologically. In our survey of 1,000 Vermonters, 528 said they'd be open to leaving the US, and of those, 78%, that's 413 people, chose Canada as their preferred destination. Number 8, Arizona. Now this one's a surprise. While most states on this list are eyeing the snowy, maple-scented comforts of Canada, Arizona is looking south and thinking maybe they've been facing the wrong direction all along. During the Trump administration, Arizona felt torn down the middle, politically split, scorched by the sun, and exhausted from being at the center of immigration debates, border wall plans, and the usual stereotypes. Yes, the guns, the retirees, all of it. But Arizona is far more complex than that. It has a large Latino population, strong cultural and familial ties to Mexico, and cities like Tucson and Nogales that often feel more connected to life across the border than to Washington, D.C. While federal leaders argue over immigration reform and ICE crackdowns, many Arizonans are left living in fear for themselves or their loved ones. The reality is, a lot of people in the state have deep personal and cultural links to Mexico. And with a shared border, frequent cross-border travel, and common heritage, the idea of aligning with Mexico isn't as far-fetched as it might sound. In our survey of 1,000 Arizonans, 602 said they'd consider leaving the US, and of those, 65% chose Mexico as the country they'd rather join. Number 7, Minnesota, already feels like it's halfway to Canada both in location and in vibe. The people are polite, they handle snow like pros, and they take pride in comfort food casseroles. Minnesotans, who tend to value decency, justice, and community, have increasingly found themselves questioning where things are headed. Now, of course, moving an entire state across an international border is next to impossible, but that doesn't stop people from talking about it. And when you compare the values, the lifestyle, and even the weather, Minnesotans and Canadians aren't all that different. You could probably say the same for Wisconsin too, but Minnesota seems to be a little louder about it lately. In our survey of 1,000 Minnesotans, 634 said they'd support the idea of their state leaving the US, and of those, 83% chose Canada as their preferred destination. Coming in at number 6, Oregon. Oregon has always marched to the beat of its own drum, quirky, creative, environmentally conscious, and proudly unconventional. Portland, the state's cultural hub, could easily have the unofficial motto, "No Trump rallies allowed." Living just outside Portland now, it's a bit surprising there hasn't been more uproar since Trump returned to the spotlight. Maybe people got burned out, or maybe they're just over it. But one thing remains: many Oregonians still don't feel aligned with the direction of US politics. In our survey of 1,000 Oregonians, 722 said they'd support the idea of leaving the US, and 81% chose Canada as the country they'd most like to join. At number 5, we have Massachusetts. Once the spark of the American Revolution, it has lately felt more like the heart of political resistance, especially during the Trump years. With its deep roots in education, science, and progressive values, the state clashed hard with federal policies on public health, immigration, and climate. Institutions like Harvard and MIT lead a state that values facts and global thinking, making Canada, with its public health care and affordable education, seem like a better fit. In our survey of 1,000 residents, 592 said they'd support leaving the US, and 71% of them chose Canada as their ideal destination. Number 4, Illinois. While other states flirt with Canada or Mexico, Illinois looked across the ocean and said, "We'll take the EU, thanks." That option was meant as a joke in our survey, but Illinois took it seriously. And honestly, it tracks. Chicago feels more in sync with cities like Berlin or Paris than with rural parts of the US, cosmopolitan, diverse, and science-driven. Illinois often feels not just politically out of step with Washington but culturally incompatible with much of the country. So why not join a place where trains run, and wine isn't pretentious without irony? Out of 1,000 Illinoisans surveyed, 674 said they'd want to leave the US, and 55% of them chose the EU as their top destination. Now at number 3, Colorado. Colorado is that free-spirited friend who just wants clean air, green energy, and some peace, outdoorsy and progressive. It's clashed hard with federal policies on climate change, immigration, and legalized substances. Canada, by contrast, feels like the easygoing neighbor who's already on board with legal herbs, universal healthcare, and protecting the environment. Out of 1,000 Coloradans surveyed, 774 wanted out of the US, and 495 of them chose Canada as their preferred new home. At number 2, we have Washington State. Washington is like Oregon's older, more tech-savvy sibling, eco-conscious, progressive, and deeply invested in science and innovation. When Trump returned to office, one of the top Google searches in the state was how to move to Canada. From banning plastic straws to building electric ferries, Washington moved forward while DC pushed coal and denied climate change. With tension over immigration, sanctuary cities, and being overlooked by federal policies, many Washingtonians felt more aligned with their northern neighbor. If not for the freezing Puget Sound, they might have swum to Vancouver already. Out of 1,000 people surveyed in Washington, 840 said they'd leave, and 91% of them chose Canada. Finally, at number 1, California. No shock here, California tops the list of states ready to break away. With its massive economy, progressive values, and frequent clashes with federal policies on immigration, climate, and healthcare, California has long felt out of sync with Washington, D.C. Canada, with its universal healthcare, climate focus, and social policies, seems like a natural fit. Though adding 40 million Californians would double Canada's population overnight, many Californians feel they'd blend in just fine. Out of 1,000 Californians surveyed, 846 said they'd leave, and 61% of them chose Canada. Mexico came in second, especially among those in Southern California. And that's it for today. Hope you guys enjoyed it and found it informative. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to Beyond the Map, so you'll never miss our next countdown. Thanks for watching, and stay inspired and keep exploring.